I never thought I would be the kind of woman who sits down to write a story like this. I used to scroll through Reddit late at night and think to myself, these people must be exaggerating their lives because there is no way real human beings are going through things this insane. I thought my life was normal, predictable in a safe way, nothing that would get thousands of strangers invested. But here I am, and I swear on everything I have left, I am not exaggerating a single detail. My name does not matter yet. What matters is what I believed my life was supposed to look like. I am in my early 30s. I married my husband Daniel 6 years ago. And if you had asked me just a few months ago, I would have told you that he was the most stable, caring, reliable man I had ever met. The kind of man who remembers your coffee order even when you forget it yourself. The kind who notices when you change something small about yourself, like a new pair of earrings or a different perfume. People used to envy me for having a partner like him. My family adored him. My friends constantly reminded me how lucky I was. I believed it too. The first crack appeared on a random Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where nothing memorable is supposed to happen. I woke up to find a small gift box on my nightstand, wrapped in the same pastel blue paper Daniel always used for little surprises. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet shaped like intertwined vines. It was beautiful, but what confused me was the note. It said, "Thought this would suit your new style. Love you." That would have made perfect sense if I had changed anything about my style. I had not bought new clothes in months. I had not cut my hair. I had not shown Daniel any Pinterest boards or saved outfits. So what new style was he talking about? I asked him about it later that day when he came home from work. He laughed it off and said something like, the new colors you've been wearing lately. I had been wearing the same neutral tones for years. I brushed it off. People misremember things all the time, except this became a pattern. A few days later, Daniel complimented me on going back to that soft waves hairstyle you used to do. I had never styled my hair in soft waves in my entire life. Then he asked if I wanted to return to that lavender nail polish phase, which again made no sense because I had never worn lavender anything. The more he spoke, the more I felt like he was confusing me with someone else. I made a joke about it once. I said, "Are you sure you are married to me and not to some alternate version of me?" He laughed, but it sounded rehearsed, like he had practiced the laugh in a mirror. I should have paid more attention to that moment, but I didn't. Everything escalated after something that happened on Instagram. One night while I was scrolling. Me. Meow me. Meow meow how meow. The cup placed on a wooden able with a flaky croissant in front of her. The caption said something about cozy mornings. The strange thing was she looked almost exactly like me. Not a twin. Not someone copying my face. But the styling. The earrings. The beige coat. Even the way she tilted her head slightly to the left, which I only did because years ago Daniel once told me it was my cutest tangle. My first instinct was to laugh because the mimicry was so bizarre. But then I clicked on her profile, and that's when the chill crawled down my spine. Her entire feed looked like a parallel universe version of mine. Every photo had a twin in my own photo gallery. The same dress I bought last month. The same restaurant Daniel took me to for our anniversary. The same nail color I tried because he once suggested it. The same makeup style that he said made my eyes softer. It was not just similar. It was identical. I showed one of the photos to my best friend Mia. I expected her to laugh. Instead, her face drained. She said, "This is weird. Really weird. I did not know." So I clicked on her bio. It only said her first name Leela. No last name. No details. Not even a location. I kept scrolling. Something felt off. Then I found a picture that made my breath stop. It was a candid shot of her sitting on a stone wall overlooking the ocean. She was wearing a flowing white sundress. The exact same sundress Daniel bought me 2 summers ago. The caption read, "Feels like coming back to who I used to be." And under it, the only person who had liked it early was an account with no profile picture and no posts. The username? A random string of letters and numbers. At the time I thought nothing of it. Later I would learn that this fake account belonged to Daniel. But the disturbing part came when I scrolled far enough down to find a wedding photo. A blurred one, taken from a distance, but I recognized the groom's silhouette. Broad shoulders, the same hairline, the same watch he used to wear years ago. My heart stopped. The caption underneath was just a date. A date I recognized. Was the date Daniel had told me his first wife had died. I stared at that photo for almost an hour. My brain kept trying to twist it into something logical, something harmless, something that did not destroy the foundation of my life. Daniel had told me before we got married that he had lost his first wife, a woman named Leela, in a car accident. He said her death nearly broke him. He said he never thought he would love again until he met me. I had cried when he told me the story. I had comforted him. But the woman in the photos looked very alive. I tried telling myself maybe he was just following her sister or someone related. Maybe it was a memorial account. Maybe I was making connections that were not real. But then something happened that ripped away any chance of denial. 2 weeks later, a delivery truck came to my house. He said, "Package for Leela Daniels?" I froze. I told him that was not my name. He apologized and checked the address. It was my address, the exact same. When I told him that I was not Leela, he said something that made my stomach twist. Strange. The last time I delivered here a few months ago, the woman said she was Leela. A few months ago? But a few months ago I was here, going to this door, signing for packages. No one else lived here. No one else had access. I felt dizzy, like reality was slipping sideways. I took the package inside even though it was not mine. When I opened it, the breath left my body. Inside was a dress, a deep emerald green silk dress, the exact same one Daniel had been begging me to try recently. But it was not my size. It was too small, perfectly sized for the woman on Instagram. That was the moment everything tipped. That was the moment something inside me whispered, something is very, very wrong. And the next morning I found something that confirmed my worst fear. And left it sitting near the dining table. I did not mean to look inside. I really didn't. But the bag fell while I was moving it, and something slid out. A phone, not his normal one. A second phone. A small black one with no case. It lit up when I picked it up. And the lock screen photo. It was me, except it wasn't me. It was Leela, wearing the bracelet he had given me. Meow Mimi, holding her cappuccino in the same exact way he told me looked cute. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I don't know how I knew it. Maybe part of me had known for years. It opened on the first try. I wish it hadn't. I really, really wish it hadn't. Because what I found inside that phone was the beginning of the truth that shattered my entire life. And I swear, the more I scrolled, the more I realized that I was not living my own life at all. I was living a version of someone else. Someone Daniel had created long before he met me. And this was just the beginning. When I unlocked the second phone, there was this strange moment where the whole house felt too quiet, as if even the air didn't want to move. I remember staring at the dim screen and thinking that maybe I should stop. Maybe this was one of those moments where you make a choice that changes everything, and once you cross that line, you can never go back to pretending life is normal. But curiosity drowned caution, and at that point, I think a part of me already knew that whatever I found would hurt more than anything I had imagined. The home screen was almost empty, almost unsettling, like lean. No clutter, no photos. No colorful icons, just calls, messages, a few folders with bland names like notes or lists, and a muted wallpaper that made the phone feel like a device specifically meant to stay invisible. It was the kind of phone someone created for secrecy, not convenience. I tapped on the Messages app first, because that felt like the fastest route to the truth I was afraid of. The very top conversation was labeled simply her. No name, no emoji, no picture. The vagueness of it alone made my stomach twist, because you don't label someone her unless you assume she is the only one in that category. The preview showed the last message Daniel had sent. "You were perfect today. Do not change anything." The phrasing made me uncomfortable immediately. It sounded instructional, almost evaluated, like he was grading someone rather than loving them. When I opened the conversation, the discomfort turned into a slow, rolling nausea. The messages went back years, and nearly every single one of them carried that same tone: controlled, directive, almost managerial. Meow 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 meow. Meow 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 meow. Meow 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 meow. Meow 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 meow. It was as if he was adjusting her life the way someone adjusts sliding in a photo. And then I saw the kind of message that changes the way you breathe. A message from 6 years ago, right before he proposed to me. "Do not contact me for a while. I need her to believe she is the only one. Stay quiet, trust the process." Her response appeared beneath it instantly. "I understand. Tell me when I can exist again." I cannot describe the feeling that hit me. It was not a shock that made you jump. It was the slow kind that crawls up your spine, tightening one vertebra at a time. She said, "Exist again." Those words alone told me everything about their dynamic, everything about how Daniel saw himself, and everything about the power he believed he had over her life. Still, I forced myself to keep reading, because now I needed to know how deep this went. Messages dating back years showed patterns: him telling her when to smile a certain way, him telling her to wear a specific bracelet, him telling her to repeat certain habits as if they meant something sacred. And the more I read, the clearer it became that I was not the only one living under the weight of his preferences. He had been shaping her just as much as he had been shaping me. Curiosity pushed me toward the folders next, particularly one labeled Adjustments. I had to sit down on the couch because my legs felt unsteady. Inside were dozens of side minus by minus side comparison photos, me on one side, her on the other. Different places, different outfits, different years, yet the poses were identical. The expressions perfectly matched. The styling nearly mirrored. Under each pair, he had typed notes like a scientist. Increase softness in speech. Reinforce eye tilt to match earlier baseline. Correct posture. She is leaning too far forward. It was surreal. I felt like I was reading notes about characters he was developing, except the characters were real women with real emotions, unreal lives that he had quietly overridden with his own designs. I clicked out quickly, feeling dizzy, and opened a different folder labeled Voices. I should not have pressed play. I knew I shouldn't have. But it was impossible not to. The first audio clip was only a few seconds long, but it felt like hours. Daniel's voice, calm and clinical, said, "Say good morning in a softer tone next time." The way she does. He was talking about me. He was telling her to mimic me. A few clips later, there were instructions for me, phrased indirectly for her. She should hold her cup with her left hand again. Remind her. It matches the old version. The old version. Who was the old version? Me? Some imaginary standard he created? By the time I opened the next folder called Schedules, I already knew it would be bad. I just didn't know how bad. What popped up was a spreadsheet with 2 columns, one with my name and one with hers. Each column listed dates, activities, appointments, clothing changes, hair transformations, and even specific photos he wanted from each of us. It was not 2 lives, it was one life being rehearsed by 2 women without knowing it. The most chilling part wasn't even the list. It was the future entries. Under my name word 8 months ahead of today, hair appointments I hadn't booked, nail colors I hadn't chosen, vacations I didn't know we would take. It was like reading plans for a version of myself I wasn't aware I was supposed to become. Under her name were notes like, complete, maintain consistency, stable version, stable version. So what was I? The unstable one? The trial run? The replacement? I don't know how long I stared at the spreadsheet. Time stopped meaning anything. I only know my breathing got shakier the longer I looked at it. And for a second, I wondered if I had stepped out of my life entirely. Eventually, I opened the last folder, the one without a name. It contained a single document titled Merging Timeline. And that's when my reality split in half. Inside were paragraphs describing his long-term plan. He wanted us to merge, not physically but psychologically. According to him, two women could be synchronized into one identity if their habits, preferences, emotional responses, and routines aligned closely enough. There were sentences like, neither must know about the other until synchronization is natural. Once alignment is complete, final unification can begin. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream. Unification? What did that even mean? What was supposed to happen to us after we were aligned? My eyes drifted down toward the end of the document. And that's when my stomach dropped. The last entry said, she is getting suspicious. Accelerate the plan. I could barely breathe. He knew. He had noticed. He had been monitoring every deviation I made without realizing it. Just then the screen lit up with a new message from Daniel. Leaving work now. 20 minutes away. We need to talk. I stared at those words, my heart pounding so hard I felt each beat in my throat. The way he phrased it told me everything. Something in my behavior had slipped out of the pattern he expected. Something in his plan had shifted, and now he was coming home. To talk, to correct, to fix whatever he thought I had broken. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. Cold, sharp clarity that cut through every ounce of confusion it'd been drowning in. He was coming home to reclaim control, and I needed to move before he walked through that door. Because if he had a second phone, he might have had a second life. And if that was true, then somewhere in this house or somewhere connected to him, there were answers I had not yet uncovered. Answers that could finally reveal how deep this manipulation went and what role she and I really played in it. So I grabbed the phone, put it back in the bag exactly how I found it, wiped the tear streaks off my face, and stood up with a steadiness I did not feel inside. I was done. I was nowhere near done. And now that it'd seen the truth, I wasn't going to stop until I knew everything Daniel had been hiding. Because he had spent years trying to shape me into something predictable, something obedient, something controlled. He had no idea what I looked like when I finally broke out of the mold. The moment I placed the secret phone back into Daniel's work bag, something in me shifted. I no longer felt like a confused wife trying to make sense of scattered clues. I felt like someone who had just seen behind a curtain that was never meant to move. And once you see what's back there, it becomes impossible to return to the life you had 10 minutes before. Daniel was on his way home. I had 20 minutes, maybe less. I needed answers before he walked through that door and tried to reroute me back into whatever version of myself he preferred. I grabbed my keys, slipped on the nearest shoes, and left through the back door as quietly as possible. The cold air outside felt like a slap, but it helped, kept me from spiraling. I knew exactly where I needed to go first: his home office. Not the one in our house, but the one he rented across town in a shared workspace building. He kept a small private room there, claiming he needed a quiet place for last-minute calls, paperwork, and big presentations. I had barely cared about it before today. But now it felt like the most obvious place to hide the parts of his life he didn't want me to see. I drove fast, not recklessly, but with purpose. My mind replayed the words from the Merging Timeline document. She is suspicious. Accelerate the plan. That sentence sat in my chest like a heavy weight. It was just something he wrote, it was something he believed he had the authority to decide. As if both of us were variables in a project he had been curating for years. When I reached the building, the lobby was almost empty. Only a bored security guard glanced up as I walked in. I flashed the badge Daniel had given me months ago just in case, never imagining I would use it like this. It beeped green without hesitation. His office was on the second floor, in a hallway lined with identical doors. The space always had this sterile feeling to it, like it existed outside normal life. When I reached his door, I entered the 4-digit P I had seen him type countless times. The lock clicked open smoothly. Inside, the room was painfully neat, perfectly arranged files, 3 monitors positioned like a command center, a single plant that I'm convinced would have died if the cleaning staff didn't water it. Nothing about the room screamed secret life, but the calmness of the space made it somehow worse. People who hide things don't necessarily create chaos. Sometimes they hide behind perfect order. I started at his desk. The drawers were locked, but Daniel never remembered to scramble combinations. One clicked open. Inside were folders with labels so bland they could have meant anything: records, reference, miscellaneous. I opened them one by one, hoping for something specific. The first folder contained receipts, plane tickets, hotel confirmations, restaurant invoices. They looked like business trip expenses, but then I noticed dates that didn't match trips he had told me about, dates where he claimed he was traveling for presentations that I now remember he never actually explained in detail. One hotel bill stood out. It listed 2 guests. No names, just an occupancy count. He had told me that trip was a solitary weekend conference. Apparently not. The second folder was worse. It contained printed screenshots of Instagram posts, mine and hers. Each screenshot was dated and highlighted, with notes written in Danielle's handwriting. Highlights around my hair, highlights around her clothing, arrows pointing to matching poses, circles around expressions he liked. There were even small evaluation notes. She achieved better consistency this week. Adjust her routine next month. Encourage subtle alignment. It felt like reviewing a project he was running, and we were the components. The third folder was even more chilling. It was full of copies of old documents, marriage records, medical files, therapy forms, and even a death certificate. His first wife's death certificate, except the signature at the bottom looked wrong. The ink tone was uneven, like it had been printed in layers, and the date didn't match the timeline he had told me. There were small inconsistencies that you only notice when you're looking for deception. I placed the certificate down slowly. He had staged her death, or forged it, or manipulated something enough to make everyone, including me, believe she was gone. As I tried to process that, my eyes drifted to a small black notebook peeking out from under a stack of papers. It looked simple, unimportant, but something about it drew me in. I picked it up and flipped it open. Inside were page after page of handwritten observations, notes on behavior, variations in routines, descriptions of our emotional responses, comparisons of our speech patterns, even records of our reactions to specific compliments or criticisms he had given us. It was like reading a psychological study written by someone who believed he owned the subjects. There were observations like, incremental correction has yielded stronger results. She is more compliant when praised directly. She reacts negatively to criticism of independence, avoid for now. But it was clear which woman each note referred to, because we had become reflections of each other. The last few pages of the notebook described something else entirely. Plans for the future. Plans for me. Plans for her. Plans for us. There was a line that said, eventually, one stable identity must remain. The merging is temporary. Selection is necessary. My throat tightened. Selection? What did that mean? Who was he planning to keep? What was supposed to happen to the other one? I sat back, breathing unevenly. trying to piece together how long he had been creating this web, how deep the manipulation went, how many edges of my life were shaped by him without me noticing. Then my gaze moved to the corner of the office. There was a locked metal cabinet I had never seen before. It looked industrial, out of place in such a neat room. I went over and tugged on the handle. Locked. I searched the office for a key. I found 3. One in the desk drawer, one taped under the desk, one hidden behind a framed certificate. None of them worked. The cabinet wasn't meant to be easily opened. But something inside told me I needed to see what was in that cabinet. Because the office had given me only half the truth. Whatever remained hidden was in there. I went back to the desk and looked around, desperate for anything he might use as a master key. And then I noticed something odd. One of the desk drawers had a false bottom. I hadn't seen it at first, but the edge was slightly raised. I pried it open with a pen. Inside was a single small object. Shathan card-shaped key. Matte black, blank on both sides. I walked back to the cabinet, slid the card into the slot, and heard a soft click. The door opened slowly with a low metallic groan, revealing stacks of binders, hard drives, labeled envelopes, and a second phone. Another one, smaller. I felt my hands tremble, but I reached in and grabbed the envelopes first. The labels were chilling. Initial conditioning. Baseline version. Progress charts. Identity deviations. I opened one of the binders, and the contents were a nightmare. Charts of emotional patterns. Graphs of speech variation. Behavioral predictions. Entire templates of what a successful version of a partner should behave like, written as if he were developing a software model. Then I opened an envelope labeled Leela Phase 1. Inside were pages describing her early years with him, how he adjusted her style, how he shaped her speech, how he guided her habits, how he slowly isolated her from people who disrupted consistency. At the bottom of one page was a handwritten note. Unstable response during crisis. Identity fragmentation likely. Consider replacement. Replacement. That word made my vision blur. Was I the replacement? Was he planning to replace me next? Was final unification just a way of deciding which version he preferred? I grabbed the second phone, the older one, and turned it on. It didn't ask for a password. It opened instantly. The home screen was filled with old messages from Leela. Desperate ones. Fearful ones. Ones begging for reassurance. Do you still want me? I can change more. Please, tell me what to fix. I feel like I'm losing myself. Is that normal? Tell me who I'm supposed to be today. Then his replies. You were not consistent enough. Try again tomorrow. Remember who you used to be before you drifted. I will tell you when you are stable. As I scrolled, the messages changed tone. She began questioning things. Asking about inconsistencies. Asking about the life she remembered before him. Her final message before the conversation abruptly stopped said, I saw someone today who looked like me. Why does she look like me? Why does she act like me? What did you do? He never replied. And now I understood why he had needed to accelerate the plan with me. She had figured it out once. And something had happened to her after that. Something he never explained. Something he had faked a death certificate to hide. My mind raced. If she confronted him back then and disappeared shortly after, what was he going to do to me now that I knew even more than she did? As that thought hit me, my phone buzzed loudly in my pocket. Not the secret phone. My actual one. I pulled it out. One new message from Daniel. Traffic is terrible. 10 more minutes. Cannot wait to see you. The words made my blood run cold. He sounded normal. Perfectly normal. The kind of normal that hides danger. The kind of normal that smiles while calculating outcomes. I looked around the office one last time, trying to memorize every detail, because I knew I wouldn't be able to return after this. Then I grabbed the older phone, slid it into my jacket pocket, turned off the lights, locked the door behind me, and walked quickly down the hall. I had 10 minutes before Daniel reached the house. 10 minutes before he realized things were no longer under his control. 10 minutes before the version of me he thought he had perfectly shaped vanished forever. But I was going home. I was going to find her. I didn't doctor home. I didn't even think about going home. Everything inside me screamed that walking into that house before understanding the full truth would be like stepping into a trap he had been constructing for years. Even my emotional rhythms. Then he certainly had a plan for what to do if I deviated. And right now, I was not just deviating. I had shattered the pattern entirely. My phone buzzed again. Another message from him. Almost there. Hope you're cooking your pasta tonight. Missed that. I wasn't even in the house. He was messaging a version of me that didn't exist anymore. A version he had molded. A version he thought would be there waiting. But the woman he thought I was had disappeared in the moment I opened that second phone. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to think. I knew I needed to find her, Leela. She was the only person in the world who could possibly understand what I had found. The only one who had lived it before me. The only one who could tell me what he had done to her and what he might try to do to me. And I had a place to start. Her Instagram. I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a grocery store, turned off my lights, and opened her profile. I scrolled until I found a recent picture. Meow meow, meow 千克. Meow meow me. Meow meow me, meow meow meow. I had been there once with Daniel. He said the atmosphere felt nostalgic. Now I knew why. It wasn't nostalgia. It was replication. I started the car again and drove across town, my pulse rising with every red light. I kept expecting to see Daniel's car behind me, like some psychological shadow refusing to detach. But his messages stopped. That was almost worse. Not accidental. Meow, meow meow meow, casting long shadows over the outdoor seating area. The place was quiet with only a handful of people inside. I scanned every table, every corner. She was there. But I didn't leave. I ordered a drink and waited, my eyes darting toward every new person who walked in. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. Meow meow me meow me meow 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 me me me. She looked like me. Not exactly. Our faces weren't identical, but the resemblance was jarring. The same hairstyle he always insisted I used to love, the same makeup style he nudged me toward, the same coat in a slightly different shade. It felt like looking at a reflection that had lived a completely different life. Meow meow meow, like someone who was used to shrinking herself for someone else's comfort. I knew that posture. Before I could lose my nerve, I stepped outside and stood directly in her path. She froze. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, it was like the world stopped breathing. I said her name softly. Leela? Her reaction told me everything. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't act confused. She didn't even blink. Instead, her face drained of color, and she whispered, "Oh God, he made you too." I felt my knees weaken, but I forced myself to stay upright. "I need to talk to you," I said. She didn't run. She didn't refuse. She simply nodded, as if she had been expecting this moment for a very long time, but had hoped it would never come. Meow me. Meow 千克好meow. Meow hao meow. Neither of us spoke, both trying to gather the strength to begin unraveling something that had been tightening around us for years. She was the one who finally broke the silence. "How much do you know?" I swallowed. Enough to know he never let me be myself. Enough to know he tried to make me into you. Her eyes softened. Not with pity, but with recognition. "He didn't make you into me," she said quietly. "He made both of us into something he wanted. Something that never existed." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. "Why didn't you leave?" She let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "I did. More than once. But when someone spends years editing your identity, You start to lose the ability to tell which thoughts belong to you and which ones were reined into you. Leaving feels impossible when you don't know where your real self begins. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and I realized she was just talking about the past. She was talking about a version of herself she still didn't fully reclaim. I leaned forward. Did he fake your death? She nodded slowly, her fingers trembling around her coffee cup. He didn't kill me, if that's what you're asking. But he made me disappear. First from my friends, then from my job, then from anyone who could remind me who I used to be. When I started questioning too much, he said I needed space to recalibrate. Recalibrate, a word you use for machines, not people. She continued, I thought leaving meant freedom. But then I saw you. My heart dropped. You saw me? She nodded. The first time was at the mall. You walked past me, and for a second I thought I was hallucinating. You looked like a version of myself I barely remembered. Her voice shook slightly, and when I saw how much you resembled the template he used on me, I realized what he had done. He created another version. You were supposed to be the perfected replacement. I took a shaky breath. So why didn't you tell me then? She looked down. Because I didn't know if you were real or just another part of his design. I didn't want to drag you into the nightmare if you weren't already in it. But when I saw you staring at my Instagram last week, I knew you were starting to see the cracks. My chest tightened. He told me you died. I know, she said softly. He told a lot of people that. But the truth is, he didn't want me dead. He wanted me erased. For a moment, the weight of everything she had said pressed down on us like a thick fog. To strangers bound by a man who treated us like interchangeable pieces in a puzzle only he understood. Finally, she asked the question I had been avoiding. What triggered it? What made you find the phone? I hesitated, then explained the package mix minus up. The bracelet, the matching photos, the strange comments about habits I never had. Her expression changed, not surprised, not shocked, but horribly familiar, like she was reliving something she had buried years ago. When I finished, she said quietly, that's exactly how it started with me. Little comments, little corrections, small inconsistencies in what he claimed I liked versus what I remembered liking. It's how he tests if you're drifting away from the version he created. Drifting, another mechanical word, another sign that he didn't see us as people at all. I stared at her. Why did he do it? She shook her head. He didn't pick us for who we are. He picked us for who he could turn us into. He needed someone moldable. Someone who wouldn't question too much too fast. Someone who could become what he couldn't find naturally. A cold realization slid down my spine. But he didn't want two of us forever. Her eyes locked on mine. No, he didn't. The synchronization process was always temporary. Eventually he would choose which version he wanted to keep. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I leaned back, feeling the world tilt around me. That means I'm in danger. You're in danger the moment you stop fitting the pattern, she said softly. And if you found the phone, then you've already broken the pattern completely. Silence stretched between us, thick, heavy, and terrifyingly real. Then I asked her the only question that mattered now. How do we stop him? She looked at me with an expression that was equal parts exhaustion and steel. We start by sharing everything we know. Every detail he used to control us. Every method he used to shape us. Every lie he told. When we combine what he taught us separately, we can understand the full architecture of his manipulation. I nodded slowly. And then? Then we take away the one thing he never expected to women to have each other. For the first time since this began, I felt something like power returning. Not full power, not certainty, but the spark of it. The beginnings of a rebellion he never anticipated. She leaned forward. There's something you don't know yet. Something I didn't put on Instagram. Something Daniel thinks I destroyed when I left. My heart quickened. What is it? I froze. A recording of what? She swallowed hard. The moment I confronted him. The moment he showed me what he planned for you. The moment he revealed what happens to the version he doesn't choose. My blood ran cold. Where is it? She looked up, her voice steadying. At my old apartment. And if it's still there, it's the only evidence that can expose everything he's been doing. But we need to get it right now, before he realizes you're not home. Before he realizes I'm still alive. Before he accelerates whatever step comes next. I stood up. So we go together? She nodded. For the first time in years. Yes. We began walking toward the parking lot. Side by side. Two versions of a life he tried to merge. Now merging for an entirely different reason. But halfway across the lot, my phone buzzed again. Daniel had sent a new message. Just one line. Just 6 words. Why aren't you in the house? I stopped in my tracks. He knew. He knew I wasn't there. He knew the moment his script broke. Leela looked at me, her face paling. What did he say? I showed her the screen. She whispered one sentence that sent a chill through me, so sharp it felt like a blade. Us moving to the next phase. When Daniel sent that last message, 6 words that felt like a trap snapping shut, something inside me shifted again. Fear had been the primary feeling until that moment. But now it fused with something steadier, something sharper. I wasn't just terrified. I was furious. Furious that he had spent years twisting our lives into his own private experiment. Furious that he had taken our identities, our choices, our routines, our very sense of self and carved them into reflections of whatever fantasy he believed a perfect woman should be. And that anger gave me clarity. We had to move fast. We had to be smarter than he expected. Leela grabbed my arm. We need to go. Right now. If HES monitoring your location or any of your routines, he'll realize exactly where you're headed. I nodded, shoving my phone into my pocket. Then we don't go straight there, we lose him first. We got into my car and pulled out of the lot, driving through side streets and looping around neighborhoods neither of us recognized. I took random turns, doubled back, turned again. Anything to break the predictable routes he thought I followed. Because now I knew predictability was his favorite cage. Only after 20 minutes of weaving through anonymous roads did Leela finally say, "Okay, I think we can go now." Her old apartment was in a part of town that felt forgotten, peeling paint. Rusted fences, cracked sidewalks. She had chosen this place years ago when she tried to disappear, hoping the anonymity would protect her. But in some ways, it also reflected what Daniel had done to her. He dimmed her light until she barely recognized herself, and she hid in the shadows because she thought that was all she deserved. We climbed the narrow stairs to the 2nd floor. Leela hesitated before unlocking the door. "If the recording is still here," she whispered, "it will be in the one place he never thought I would dare to look again." Inside, the apartment felt frozen in time. Dust on the shelves, a half-empty bookshelf, a forgotten mug on the counter. A life paused, not ended, just abandoned. Leela walked straight to a small storage closet near the living room. She reached behind a stack of old blankets and pulled out a metal box that looked fireproof. She set it on the floor between us and took a deep breath before lifting the lid. Inside were 3 things: a flash drive, a small recording device, a folded piece of paper. She handed me the paper first. I unfolded it. It was a letter addressed to herself. "If you ever doubt what happened, listen to this. If you ever feel like going back, remember who you were before he wrote you. If someone else finds this, God help her." I felt my throat tighten. "He knew you would forget yourself. He made me forget," she said quietly. "But he didn't erase everything." She picked up the recording device and hit play. Daniel's voice filled the room, calm, unshaken, almost bored. The recording began during their final confrontation, her voice trembling, his voice cold and even. I felt my skin crawl as I listened. Lila's voice. I saw her. She looks like me. Why does she look like me? Daniel's voice. You shouldn't have seen that. Lila. What did you do to her? Daniel. Nothing that wasn't necessary. You drifted. I needed stability. A new version. Think of it as evolution. Lila. She doesn't know anything. Daniel. She knows what I allow her to know. Just like you. There was a long silence in the recording, followed by the unmistakable sound of something breaking, maybe her composure, maybe something in the room. Then Daniel said something that made my stomach turn cold. One final unification. Then I choose which identity remains. That's how this works. That's how it has always worked. Lila's voice broke. You can't control people like this. Daniel, I already have. The recording ended. We both sat there, letting the silence wrap around us like a force field. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from rage, from the certainty that the world needed to hear this. Everyone needed to hear this. I looked at her. We're taking this to the police. She nodded. And his family, and his job, and anyone who ever trusted him. We're not just stopping him, I said quietly. We're going to destroy the whole image he built. Good, she whispered. He built it out of our lives. It's time for him to pay for that. We backed up the flash drive onto my phone, then onto her old laptop. We created multiple copies, each encrypted, each stored in different places. He had controlled us long enough. Now we controlled the evidence. By the time we finished, the sky outside had gone dark. We need to face him at some point, Lila said, but not until we have backup. And we did. We had the messages. We had the spreadsheets. We had the recordings. We had years of calculated manipulation documented in his own handwriting. Now all we needed was timing. I took a breath. HES probably home by now. Lila's voice steadied. Then let's go meet him. Not alone. We drove straight to the police station. The officers didn't dismiss us. They didn't tell us it was a misunderstanding. Once they listened to the initial clips and saw the documentation we brought, their entire demeanor changed. A detective came in. Then a second one. Then someone from the cyber unit. By the time we finished giving formal statements, there were 4 officers reviewing pieces of evidence, whispering to each other with expressions that looked like a mixture of disbelief and disgust. One detective pulled me aside. You need to know this won't stay quiet for long. Once we move on this, it's going to hit every part of his life. That's the point, I said. And you're safe tonight, he added. But don't go home. Not yet. We stayed in a nearby hotel, both exhausted but unable to sleep. My nerves buzzed like electricity under my skin. Lila sat on the edge of her bed staring at the floor. HES going to realize we're not coming back, she said. He already knows, I replied. But it doesn't matter now. We're not the women he trained anymore. She nodded slowly. HES not ready for that version of us. The next morning, everything exploded. Police raided Daniel's office. Police raided our house, my house, searching through devices. Documents, anything he could have hidden. They found things even we didn't know existed. Journals, backup phones, hard drives full of data on both of us, psychological charts, behavioral tracking logs, even early stage manipulation notes about other women he had started testing before choosing us. He had been planning this entire system long before he met either of us. By noon, he had been arrested. By evening, the news had broken. By night, his colleagues, clients, even his own family were giving statements. His reputation was damaged. It was obliterated. He was charged with multiple crimes: fraud, coercive control, identity manipulation, evidence tampering, forgery. It didn't bring back the years he stole from us, but it ended any future he might have tried to shape out of someone else's life. 2 weeks later, Leela and I stood outside the courthouse after a hearing. The air felt cleaner somehow, like the world was finally expanding again after being compressed into shapes he designed. Leela turned to me. So what now? I smiled softly. Now we build lives that aren't synchronized, not aligned, not curated, just ours. She nodded, her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen before possibility. We're free, she whispered. Completely. As we walked away from the courthouse, I realized something profound. He had spent years trying to merge us into one identity. But in the end, the one thing he never predicted, the flaw in his entire blueprint, was that the moment we found each other, we didn't become a single version of a perfect woman. We became two women he could never control again. And for the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Not a curated version, not a rehearsed version, not a designed version. Just me, whole, aware, awake, and free. Daniel's plan was to merge us. But when we finally united, we didn't become what he wanted. We became the force that destroyed him,